Hello, this is Sophomore Astrology. My name is Sarah, and for this video, I'm going to talk about chakras, healing, and the endocrine system. So be sure to like, share, and comment on this video. Also, subscribe to my channel. You can find me on Instagram at Sophomore Astrology. I would appreciate a follow. I always follow back. And then also, too, I have a website. There I have a blog. I haven't really been consistent about uploading on Wednesday, but I'm definitely going to start soon. And yeah, so let's get into the video. So first things first, what are chakras? Because the day before I recorded this video, I'm recording it January 1st of 2022, right? And the day before, I don't know, I just kind of woke up and I felt called to kind of research a lot of things, and I honestly feel that this is just a download. And then I was just divinely guided to kind of study chakras and healing and try to understand the correlation between that and the endocrine system, And I was really trying to understand what colors meant. Like, how did colors relate to the astrology? What planets kind of have dibs on which colors, and how do colors play out, and what does color have to do with spirituality and in its totality, So to speak specifically about what the chakras are, I mean, I was reading that there could be 114 chakras, and they're just like kind of focal energy points that you have within your spirit or in your body. And honestly, people usually just talk about the 7 chakras, but I've heard that there could be like over 100 of them. So I'm just going to talk about 7 for the sake of this video. But we have the root chakra, the sacral chakra, the solar plexus, the heart chakra, the throat chakra, the third eye, and then you have the crown. Now, the root chakra is all about kind of survival and grounding yourself. It's about your needs and your safety, just basic human needs that you might have. And then the sacral chakra is more about creativity and reproduction and sex. It's also about it kind of like sorry, the sacral chakra is also about the polarity of femininity and masculinity as well, so that's the sacral chakra. The root chakra is like at the bottom of the base of your spine. The sacral chakra, I would have to say, it's kind of like where your pelvis is. And then we have the solar chakra that is located kind of like at your navel. It's also kind of like where your all your digestion is. I think that's also where your solar plexus is. So that explains, like, when I get nervous, I start to get, my stomach gets bubbly. I start to get uncomfortable. I might feel like I have to use the restroom when I'm anxious and I don't feel courageous. But when I am courageous, that spot feels very strong to me. And that's just around the navel, the solar chakra. The next thing you have is the heart chakra. Now, the heart chakra is really just kind of like where it feels like it's in the middle of your chest, This is a chakra about pure love, understanding that the highest vibration is love. And that's where it kind of vibrates at, is the heart, is right there, is where your chest is. The next thing you have your throat. Now, the throat is the throat chakra is all about like clear communication. How you communicate and everything like that. That's where that chakra kind of lies. Now, the third eye is interesting because the third eye is kind of like not between your eyes, but kind of between your eyebrows. And that is a sense of saying that you have clear vision. If that chakra is healthy and clear, you're going to have clear vision. This is also kind of where people say a lot of psychic abilities come from, is from the third eye. And then last but not least, you have the crown chakra, which is just above your head. And I've always thought of the crown as an antenna to spirituality, an antenna to the divine. It's like how you directly connect to that higher power that you believe in. And it's also how you get inspired to do things, So those are the 7 chakras I'm going to talk about in this video. The next thing I want to talk about is the endocrine system. Now, like, not to get too sciencey, but the nervous system is responsible for kind of giving the body its ability to kind of like either fight or flight, or it gives the body the ability to calm itself after, it's been in that fight or flight mode, And even though the endocrine system and the nervous system are both their own systems, they really work together very well. Because it's kind of like the endocrine system talks to the nervous system through the hypothalamus. And basically, the hypothalamus controls all the rest of the glands in your body that are responsible for secreting hormones. Basically, the hormones in your body, they're really needed. And if you have too much or too little of a hormone, then it can really affect how your body is, how you feel, and how your body operates. It won't be the great machine that it is without having the right amount of these hormones when you need them. Okay, so the thing to keep in mind as I'm talking about chakras and the endocrine system and how they relate to one another is to kind of really understand that the concept of compartmentalizing everything and putting everything in a box, that idea really needs to be unlearned. Because I think Western civilization has really tried to put everything in its box, put everything in its space. And honestly, that's not really how spirituality works, because even just as you talk about a human person, a human person is just not physical. They're physical, they're mental, they're emotional, they're spiritual, they're psychological. Like, there's so many. Human beings are so multifaceted, and it's very difficult to put us in a box. I feel like the divine, I feel like the God doesn't even put us in a box. So it's kind of like, when you do that, you kind of lose things, or you lose sight of things. I feel like that's why sometimes people don't always necessarily trust Western medicine, and why it sometimes fails, because there could be spiritual things going on with someone and they manifest in a very physical way. And Western medicine doesn't really consider that, hey, your disconnect with your ancestors is the reason why your kidneys are messed up and your blood pressure is going up. Like, Western medicine doesn't really play with those ideas. So that's why it's important, as I'm talking about this, to understand that when I'm talking about the endocrine system and when I'm talking about the chakras, they're the same thing. I'm literally speaking two languages. I'm speaking the medical language of understanding the anatomy and physiology of that is what makes up the endocrine system. I'm speaking into that world. But then I'm also speaking of, when I'm talking about chakras and energy and focal energy points that are within your body and your spirit, I'm talking about something spiritually. So as I'm kind of going in the video, I think my biggest thing that I want to be understood is that do not compartmentalize. I'm using different words to describe different things, but I'm really using them interchangeably. And I think that's also another thing to realize about healing, is that you cannot think about healing as just physical, and you can't think about healing as just spiritual. Both of them have to come together in order to kind of really understand what it means to be healed in all areas. You know what I'm saying? So the first chakra I want to talk about is the root chakra. Now, at the root chakra, you also have the testes. Now, the testes release a hormone called testosterone. When a boy kind of becomes a man physically, the voice deepens, their height gets bigger, and also too, they start to grow facial hair. But also, the testes are responsible for telling the body when it's meant to kind of make sperm. So I kind of think of the root chakra not just as the root chakra, but as the seed, because sperm is considered seed. So I kind of feel like that's why, I think of the root chakra being also kind of because it's known to be the color red. And when I think of red, I think of Mars. When I think of Mars, I think of Aries, because Aries is ruled by Mars, right? And I kind of feel like that Mars, Aries energy is kind of very much survival. It's about grounding yourself. It's like, do I have the basic things I need, like food, water, and shelter, in order to survive? Do I have the seed in order to make this manifestation or this plant grow? It all starts with the seed. And I feel like that's why the root chakra, is at the base of the spine, because that's where life begins, at the base of the spine when a woman gives birth. Now, the next chakra I want to talk about is the sacral chakra. And I honestly feel like it's considered sacred because this is where the location is of the ovaries. You know, the ovaries secrete hormones like estrogen and progesterone. It controls things like the menstrual cycle and pregnancy. You know, I feel like this area, this chakra is very sacred because this is kind of like, once the seed is planted, this is when you start to see the egg become more than just an egg, you know? It's a very, like, when you think of just how fragile an egg can be, that's why I feel like this chakra is considered sacred in a way, like sacral chakra, because this is kind of like where the beginning of life is finally fertilized and it grows into something more. And this is a very fragile stage, you know. I also think of, because we're thinking of cycles, I'm thinking about the moon, you know, and how the moon controls like the ebb and flow of water on planet Earth, and how how temperamental to people who have strong moon placements or strong Cancer placements can be, because it's just at such a sensitive and sensitive stage in the beginning, you know. So yeah, that's the sacral chakra. The next chakra I want to talk about is the solar plexus, you know, and the color that emits off the solar plexus is yellow. You know, I automatically think of Leo, the sun, you know, and because, like, you know, the sun is, I believe it's exalted in Leo, I believe. If not, it's just super comfortable there because, you know, Leo is all about like being courageous and kind of looking your enemy in the eye. Even if you do have fear, you have the courage or the strength to do so. You know, Leo's considered a very strong sign in the fact that it puts faith in itself, even if maybe no one else has faith. And it's no wonder that, you know, the adrenal glands that sit right on top of the kidneys, like, that's where the word adrenaline comes from. So when it comes to your like fight or flight, this is the gland that produces that the hormone that is adrenaline, which increases your blood pressure and increases your heart rate when you're under stress. So when things are about to go down, you know, this is the hormone that releases that ability to be courageous in a moment where you're you could be potentially in danger. And then also, too, I want to say that the pancreas is located at the solar plexus. Now, the pancreas is responsible for controlling the sugar in the bloodstream. You know, honestly, if the pancreas doesn't do its job in releasing certain hormones to digest the sugar right, or to have the sugar be digested by the cells in your body, this is what causes that type 2 diabetes. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like these two glands are very responsible for kind of giving you, like, the sugar in your blood kind of gives you the energy that you need in order to kind of like fight, you know? And the adrenal glands is what gives you that kind of like fight or flight nature, where it gives your body the responses that it needs in order to react properly to stress. Another key thing I want to say is that I was kind of looking into a little bit into Eastern medicine. And honestly, like, the kidneys, they consider that ancestral chi, meaning that like a lot of our ancestry is very connected to our kidneys. And I think it's so crazy because like the kidneys are responsible for kind of regulating, like either holding the water that we have within ourselves or releasing that water through like urination or sweating, right? So I think it's very interesting, like the way we hold water physically is also kind of connected to the spirituality, that the way we relate to our ancestors is through how much water we're releasing and holding, you know, like that. That's what that organ, the kidneys, is responsible for, is regulating the water within our body. So it's like we have to really kind of like really treat our kidneys right, you know, because otherwise, you know, we're not going to be able to hold that water and kind of be connected to our ancestors through our body that way. Now, the next gland I want to talk about is the thymus gland. Now, the thymus gland is responsible for our immunity. You know, it produces white cells, and it kind of produces this one cell called lymphocytes that become T cells. I'm basically saying in so many ways that this gland is responsible for producing the cells that kind of go through the body and kill viruses and bacteria that's not supposed to be there. And also too, the thymus is also responsible for our long-term health. You know, how do we fight infections? How do we kind of fight things within our own body? Like, how does our own body kind of like keep us going? And I'm not surprised that the thymus is located at the heart chakra. You know, the heart chakra emits that green color. And kind of like when I think of green, I think of Venus, honestly, because Venus is known to kind of have very pastel light tones. But I also feel like Venus is responsible for this heart chakra because, you know, your heart is how you relate to other people. How are you harmonious with other people? And it's kind of like when people say someone died from a broken heart, I honestly feel like this is the chakra that's affected by that person, where it's like literally their condition, their emotional condition really does affect the rest of their body and their immunity. If people don't feel love or experience love, their body will break down on them and it will not be able to kind of withstand the test of time. Because like I said, the thymus gland is responsible for our long-term health. The next chakra I'm going to talk about is the throat chakra. Now, the throat chakra emits the color blue. So when I think of blue, I think of the planet Jupiter, and I also kind of think of Neptune too. Jupiter rules Sagittarius and Neptune rules Pisces. So the thyroid gland, it controls your metabolism, like how much energy do you have. You know, it's kind of responsible for when you eat food and it breaks down the nutrients, you know, how fast or how slow does your body break down those nutrients for the body to be able to use it up. You know, kind of like when you think about someone who's trying to lose weight, they eat less because the body will have less calories to burn, you know, and will have to kind of go through the reserves. And then that's how you lose weight, is because your body is using the energy it already has. Versus if you're trying to like gain weight, you eat more than your body is able to burn, and then that's why you're able to kind of keep nutrients and stuff like you know, like fat and proteins and carbs in your body, so that you'll be able to hold on to more, because your body can't burn everything that it's being put into it, you know. And I kind of feel like that kind of makes sense, because it's kind of like in so many ways the thyroid gland is responsible for energetic balance. And I honestly feel like that's what clear communication is. Communication with the divine, with God, the communication you have with other people, the communication that's even happening within your own body. I feel like the thyroid is responsible for clear communication, and it makes sense that a gland in your body that is responsible for how much energy is burned and how much energy is reserved is saying in so many ways, like the energy that has that ebb and flow between us, like all of us, you know. I feel like those are definitely very much connected with each other. Now, we've talked about the root chakra, we talked about the sacral chakra, we talked about the solar plexus, we talked about the heart chakra, and then we also talked about the throat chakra. Now, there's just 2 chakras left. Now, I think it's kind of crazy, because when you're talking in like from a scientific standpoint, the brain is considered the computer of the body. It is where all the coding takes place. The brain kind of really programs our body, and it also keeps track of how our body is feeling too, in order to teach us or to tell us how to react to certain situations, right? And here, the third eye emits an indigo color, which is kind of like a very dark but a little purplish blue color. So honestly, when I think of purple, I'm thinking of the planet. When I'm thinking of purple, I kind of think a little bit about Pluto, but also too, sorry, I'm looking through my notes. But when we're also talking about that color, we're also talking about Jupiter too. It kind of has a lot of planets kind of coming together in that one space, because the third eye is all about psychic ability, and every sign has its own way of being psychic. So it's like, it's not really that any one particular planet, I would say, kind of takes over the third. Because you kind of need all four elements in order to really have that clear vision. That's what the chakra, the third eye is. It's about clear vision. And you need all 12 signs. You need all four elements to, to really have a balanced vision of things in perspective. Because I just want to say before I kind of dive into what glands, what they do at this third eye chakra, is that it's important to remember that perception is reality. The way you see the world is also how you kind of map out the world, and how, like, it's just like the way you see the world is how the world is to you, you know? And I kind of feel like the brain is so powerful and so strong. And I'm not just talking about the brain in its physical sense, but the brain, the spiritual brain, you know, because you could also say, too, that the physical brain is responsible for the emotional brain. The biggest takeaway I want someone from this video to get is that the brain is the master organ, yes, but it's also because this pituitary gland is there. It's like hormones are just emotions. Kind of use that interchangeably. When you say that you're emotionally off, you're probably hormonally off, and you probably should look into your endocrine system. Vice versa, you should also see yourself spiritually. If something is emotionally off, there might be something going on with your spiritual energetic field as well. You know, there's something that you need to pay attention to. Now, to kind of get back to what I was saying about the pituitary gland is responsible for, like, the growth in your bones. You know, it kind of makes sure that your bones and your muscles and everything have all the electrolytes, the minerals, and the nutrients it needs to kind of grow and develop and to be maintained once you kind of reach adulthood. The pituitary gland is also responsible for, like, activating the milk production that someone needs in order to breastfeed their child. The pituitary gland stimulates all the other hormones, like the thyroid and its hormones. It releases hormones that are responsible, like I said, that kind of hold or release the water in the body. Also, too, the pituitary gland is responsible for releasing oxytocin, the chemical that causes contractions to happen during childbirth. So, you know, I don't know if you get what I'm getting across with this, but it's like there's a lot of water that is involved. There's earth when you're talking about minerals and elements. Electrolytes, you know, and you're talking about water when you're talking about something like the body holding on or releasing water. You're also talking about, like, fire, because also, too, the pituitary gland is responsible for the body's temperature. And then the last element, air. The pituitary gland is also responsible for how we breathe, how slow or how fast we breathe, and how slow and fast our heart beats. That is all, like, the pituitary gland either is directly causing all those things to happen, or they tell the other glands of the body to do those things that need to be done in order to kind of regulate our body. And the pituitary gland is controlled by the hypothalamus, you know, so I don't want to get too sciencey, but you get what I'm saying. It's just like the pituitary is the brain. And that's why the third eye chakra is very responsible for the brain and knowing everything and being able to, like, kind of really use vision and to be balanced and to be clear. Otherwise, you're not going to have that 20/20 vision, pretty much, if anything goes awry. Now, the last chakra I'm going to talk about is the crown chakra. Now, the crown chakra, I know some people say that Uranus has dibs on this chakra. But, I mean, you know, it's kind of like the way I see it is, like, the gland that is there at the crown chakra is the pineal gland. Yeah, that's how you say that. And it secretes melatonin. Now, melatonin, it helps you to kind of regulate your sleep. And the time you go to sleep and the time you wake up, that is kind of controlled by this hormone that is melatonin. And it's kind of like, that's why you kind of see teenagers, they have low levels of melatonin, because that's why they could stay up till 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, but they'll sleep into like noon to early afternoon, right? Because they don't have good levels of melatonin. Also, too, when I'm speaking of this is also what reminds me of the witching hour. You know, that time at night where people say that like the spiritual and physical world kind come together, and the boundary between those two worlds is kind of lifted between 3 and 5 a.m. in the morning. I honestly feel like because even though the pineal gland is kind of located the same place where the third eye, I understand why people might say that this is the crown chakra that's above the head, because it's almost like I said, the crown chakra is like the antenna to the spiritual world. And I kind of feel like people who have a stronger link or stronger tie to the spiritual world, that's why I feel like they wake up 3 to 5 in the morning, because literally the hormone, or at least that energetic field, is responsible for sleep and your dream state, you know? And that's why I kind of feel like it has Uranus and a kind of Neptunian vibe, you know, Aquarius and Pisces. And Aquarius and Pisces are the last signs, you know, the 11th and 12th house of when you're talking about houses, and it's the 11th, 12th sign. It's the final two signs that you kind of experience before you transcend into another place time altogether. You know, so I kind of feel like that's interesting that, you know, the crown chakra is responsible for our dream state and how we kind of see reality. So yeah, there's that. So as I said, and I'll just probably keep saying it, but there's a need to not compartmentalize, you know, the physical and the spiritual world, because it's kind of like we are physical and spiritual beings. And it's important to kind of understand that, you know, a lot of the time, spiritual symptoms or spiritual illnesses, or when we're kind of weak spiritually, it shows up in our bodies. And it's kind of important to know where the ailments are kind of showing up and where the illnesses are showing up in your body, because that can kind of like directly tell you if something's going on with you spiritually. You know, I don't feel like I think every single person has the ability to kind of heal themselves, because no one knows your body better than you do. And I honestly feel like sometimes, like, I'm not claiming to be a medical doctor, and I'm not prescribing any like medications or treatments or anything, but I would say that there's a need to kind of like also focus on your chakras. You know, I think sometimes we're so quick to kind of like maybe take a pill and have our physical symptoms kind of like be minimized, but there's also a need to kind of pay attention to spirituality. Because here, as you're like, I'm showing you this video right here where it's kind of like even modern medicine and modern science is really showing the correlation to how things like meditation and yoga and being aware of your breathing and how certain essential oils even work. Like, they haven't really gotten to the point of like accepting crystals full-heartedly, but you could kind of see how modern medicine is showing that, like, especially when it comes to things going on with your kidney, any like maybe any like mental or psychiatric disorders, all these things get better when you meditate and you do yoga. Like, even science is kind of like, science is a little behind in that way, because things that have been preached in ancient cultures and countries like have been talking about yoga for thousands of years. They've been talking about meditation for thousands of years, if not longer. And it's like science is finally kind of understanding that you can't just focus on someone's physical body in order to heal them. You have to focus on the spiritual, but you also can't forget about the physical. I kind of feel like the age of Aquarius really brought attention to understanding that we can't neglect the physical either. They all kind of have the same amount of importance as well. So with that, just remember that if you're looking to kind of heal yourself, keep in mind that it could be spiritual, it could be physical, it can be coming from anything. And you really need to kind of investigate and understand how you feel. What are your emotions telling you? You know, if you're emotionally imbalanced, it could mean that you're spiritually imbalanced. So that's why I say, like, it's important to kind of like learn meditation, especially chakra meditation, you know, and kind of like having simple like sayings or chants for each chakra, and to work on all chakras, because all chakras are connected. Yeah, so after saying all that, just let me know if this video resonated with you. I definitely got that download about, the need of really to heal during this year of 2022, sixth house, Virgo energy, all of that. And I just want to know if anyone else was kind of feeling that energy as well, so just let me know in the comments below. And with saying that, I just want to say thank you for listening and watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and have a good rest of your day.